Was just our conditioning, and we talked about that and felt like we would have an advantage in regards to that. You know, you look at their 4-game stretch, right? They had a tough one, a good one, opener, and then I think they played another one, bye week, played a game, whereas we had played in, some competitive contests. So we just felt like from a game speed, game stamina, we might have been a little bit better conditioned than them, and that's what we sold to our guys, and they took it, and we got some success early on, and I think our O-line, confidence built throughout that case, and was able to change the line of scrimmage. And some of it was the tempo piece that we utilized to help us in that regard, but kudos to the O-line. They just got behind their pads and got 4 legs on 2 and tried to change the line of scrimmage.
And then late in the game, the touchdown catch by Xavier.
Yeah.
Was that something you guys had saved for a moment like that? What was
well, not so much saved for a moment like that. It was it was one of our red zone area plays, and the play before we got the holding penalty that took the touchdown off the board. So it was a great response by those guys, right? Well executed. Xavier getting in the right spot he's supposed to be for the route. Chandler making obviously good throw, and the O-line protecting. Yeah.
Are you happy with what you have at running back right now with the way it's worked between
Jamar,
Jamar,
I am happy
Harrison?
because I feel like with the 3 guys that are available for us right now, that any of them can go out and produce for us. And obviously Jamar's playing at a high level. X, when have his opportunities, playing at a high level. Even Harrison, hopefully we get Noah back here pretty soon.
Terrell Harris had 2 big plays in that game.
Yeah.
One that kind of turned the tide back to you guys, and then obviously the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Having him healthy.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge for him, right? His confidence, right, as he continues to play. But it's huge for us offensively. And we all knew last season when he went down what kind of a loss that was, right? And to have him, there for us every day and every game is a huge benefit.
You talk about how incredible the game for O-line, moving the line of scrimmage against Louisville. Yes. Their pass rush is going to be a huge test.
Yes, another week in ACC, another challenge, right? And this defensive front, and I seem like I say this every week, right? That this defensive front we're playing is pretty dang good. These guys get after the quarterback. They wreak havoc, right? They're very twitchy, they're athletic, and they can speed, the power rush. So we got to be very good with our fundamentals, right? Playing with our pad level down, using our hands to strike, get the ball out of our hands quick, those type things. But also got to continue to be able to run the football as well.
Chandler's decisions to run it when he gets down into the red zone, were those mostly reads that he made? And just talk about his
as I'm recalling, there was 2 plays that was like a read play for him. Mm-hmm. And then the other 2 were scrambles, right? And we talk about 4-point plays. 2 of those were 4-point plays because one was a 3rd down and 11, right, that he converted into a touchdown. So that's 4 points plus as opposed to kicking a field goal. And then it was a 3rd down and I think it was 3rd and 7, 3rd and 4 on the 7. We did a quarterback zone read that he was able to get it in the end zone for. So those are 2 4-point plays that were critical in that game when you think about it, right? If we had to rely on kicking field goals there, then may not have gotten the outcome that we received. So there is some design things in situations. He's a pretty smart player, but he's also going to, use his legs to escape, out of the pocket if necessary. So,
how much of that is just heady stuff?
Yeah,
on his part?
I think it's just, the amount of football he's played, right, and seeing the big picture of it, and having a time clock in his mind of like, okay, I've held on to this long enough, like I can escape it and make a positive play. Really smart player.
I know we discussed the O-line and how they did, but the pass protection from your tight ends as well as some of your wide receivers. I think that last touchdown in the second overtime, it was Sage Ennis and Dakota Tweedy on that side.
Yeah, and that's a big role that the tight ends have to play because there's certain matchups where we're going to need to keep 6 guys in, 7 guys in, chip an edge player, those type of things. Those guys are unselfish in that. They've also been rewarded too. Dak's catching a couple balls. Sage is catching some touchdowns down the red area when it presents itself. But, we talk about that position being the core, right? Got to do everything. Got to be able to do it pretty well for the offense to be successful.
What was just your reaction up in the booth at the end of the game, and kind of what was it like up there for those overtime periods?
The reaction was really being able to take a deep breath and relieve, right? Because we knew it was going to be a 4-quarter game, right? It was going to. We talked about it being a kind of a heavyweight fight, body blows. We got to withstand their body blows. We got to be able to give them some body blows. And, you know, fortunately for us, our hits probably last a little longer, and we sustained their hits, right, to be able to finish that out at home in front of the crowd. But, you know, from that point, it's just, you know, really excited for the kids and for the program and for everybody in the program, you know, everybody that supports the program, you know. But for us, it's just now it's on to the next, right, because that's good for everybody else. But for us in this building, right, Louisville is a tough test. So, you know, beating Florida State Friday night has nothing to do with trying to win the game against Louisville on Saturday.
How often do you practice overtime situations in you know, during the week?
Not so much in the week. It's a big deal in fall camp,
Gotcha.
right? When we have those extra times in that deal, and you know, we put the ball down. And, okay, hey, we're in an overtime situation right here. You know, what you gotta do to try to execute. But you know, you're playing red zone football too. So really, it's just an extension of red zone football. Probably a little bit more strategy, and if they score first, you know, type deal of making sure you can get points on the board. Or if you had the ball first, maybe a little bit more aggression, right, to try to get points, right, because you don't want to, you know, have that possession not have any points.
I was going to say, do you go in kind of knowing what you have an idea of how you want to call it?
Yeah, like I said, it goes back to the red zone game plan there. You know, obviously in the course of the game, if there's something that we had thought or planned for the red area, we've been down there and they had defended it differently, then that's just part of us having to make those adjustments if it got to an overtime situation. But usually those adjustments are made, if necessary, prior to, because hopefully we get back to the red zone at some point in the game.
How have you? Sorry.
Do you feel like you can win a shootout against just about anybody?
You know, I think the confidence of our players is growing week to week to feel like that we have the ability to score. And whatever it takes, we're just talking about win. If it's a 3-2 game, we'll take it, right? We just want one more point than the opponent. You know, each game is differently, right? And fortunate enough, we've been able to have some success, right, on third downs, right, red zone, that allows us to sustain drives and score points. We just got to continue doing that.
How have you just seen Chandler grow in his role at this point in the season?
You know, growth, because he came in as a very mature guy. I think his growth is how fast he became really comfortable with us, right, and with what we're doing offensively to maximize his talents as well. And the thing I really appreciate about him is just the dialogue, the communication, right, throughout the course of the week. You know, even on game days, just he and I talking, you know, in between a series or something that he may be seeing, just confirming maybe what I'm seeing. And, you know, that growth of myself and him as a quarterback and coordinator has been really good.
When you talk about maturity, this is an older team.
Yes.
When you're dealing with success coming from a top-ranked team, then moving on to the next game, how much does that help you as a coach, having that older locker room?
Yeah, there is some positives to that. And some of these guys in the locker room have come from programs that have won at a high level. You know, you think about Jaden Thomas and Mitchell Melton, even Chandler in his time at TCU. So they can just reaffirm some of the messaging from Coach Elliott and the staff, just about sticking to the process that we've been chipping away at for the last 3 years and trying to build a foundation, starting to reap some benefits of that. But that's not the end, right? It's still about showing up the next day, sticking to the same routine. Don't change what you're doing. Don't change who you are. Continue doing what you're doing, who you are, and then on Saturday, just put forth our best foot to go win a football game.
This is going to be just your guys' second road game of this year. You know, have you guys talked about that at all? You know,
No, honestly, not so much, just because it's another opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's a short flight up there. We do know it's going to be warmer, right? So it'll probably be comparable to the NC State game. That's what we're anticipating, because I think it's about 87, 88 on the turf, 330. So, you know, we just remind our guys about the recovery aspects, right, and the hydration pieces that go into being able to perform, right? We played 80-something snaps offensively on Friday. It may take 80 or 90 snaps on Saturday, and every snap we got to be at our best. So just our nutritional habits, our hydration habits, starting actually early in the week, not waiting until Thursday or Friday to prep for that. Yeah.
You mentioned Louisville's aggressiveness. Do they blitz a lot, and is it a form, or is it
No,
mostly a format?
I mean, he does have some pressures. You know, obviously,
Yeah.
we've gone against Coach English for the last 2 seasons, and one of the better D coordinators out there in the country. You know, historically has done a really good job. You can tell, you know, he knows his personnel, right? You know, 2 years ago it was strictly like a 5-man front, man coverage in your face, right? This year is a little bit more diversity. There's some 4-down stuff. There's some zone coverages in it. But there's also, in situational football, there's some heavy man. So, you know, I think their front is a vertical attacking type front, you know, particularly edge guys. You know, the interior guys are thick and stout, right, and try to two-gap and can kind of anchor down on the double teams. So it goes back to what we're talking about with the run game. We got to be able to play with low pass leverage to try to move that line of scrimmage to create some seams for the running backs. But, you know, the linebackers, number 9, I think is a really good player. You know, I know they lost probably one of the better linebackers, number 6, but it all starts up front, man. They're edge guys, number 50, number 17. There's the interior guys, number 90. Like they're really a good test. They're really good.
So what's happening with your tight ends in the red zone? They always seem to be open.
You know, I mean, I'm happy for them. There's some things, obviously, that we have in the passing game that, you know, makes them a viable option, and Chandler's been able to find them, you know.
I think four touchdowns in the
Yeah,
last 4 weeks.
is it?
for
That's
tight
good
ends.
then.
I think that's more
Yeah.
more touchdowns you've had each of the last 3 years.
Oh,
for
yeah,
tight ends.
absolutely. And hopefully that continues to grow.